Operations from around the world as part of the K3LR Multi-DX radio sport contest effort since 1992. He was the ARL Atlantic Division Technical Achievement Award winner in 1998. Tim was the moderator for the Dayton Contest Forum for 10 years and has been the moderator for the Convention Antenna Forum for the last 34 years. He is founding member of and current president of the North Coast Contesters, serving as chairman of the Contest University for 13 years. Dayton Contest Dinner for the last 27, chairman of Top Band Dinner, as well as coordinator for Contest Super Suite in Dayton, the yearly convention. He is founder and moderator for the popular RFI Reflector. He's been doing that since 1999. He has been guest on Ham Nation multiple times. We have seen him. Tim was member of Team USA World Radio Team Championship 5 times, and most recently in Germany with Sandy DL1QQ. Tim serves on the board of directors of Worldwide Radio Operation Foundation as chairman and president emeritus, Radio Club of America, RCA, and president Mercer County Amateur Radio Club. Tim was elected as CQ Contest Hall of Fame in 2006, was honored with the prestigious Barry Goldwater Amateur Radio Service Award by RCA in 2010, and has been honored as Hamvention Amateur of the Year in 2015 by Dayton Amateur Radio Association. In addition to all of that, Tim is the Chief Operating Officer and General Manager at DX Engineering, which, by the way, was generously donated a geocron to the Ham Jam, thank you, sorry. Wasn't written down, so it fell out of my head. Please welcome Tim Duffy.
Well, thanks very much for having me this evening. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, great. We're going to talk about tower safety, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart. Here at K3LR in Western Pennsylvania, I have 13 towers, and I've spent the better part of 33 years building this multi station. And tower safety is paramount here at K3LR. We have a lot of tower work that goes on. And so I developed a set of slides that I'm going to show you here this evening, along with my good friend Tim Jellison, W3YQ. And so I'm going to bring those up now. And let's start sharing. And do you see the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll make them a little bigger. Okay. So again, this is one of the towers of K3LR, and this is a slide show that was adapted for the Contest University in Dayton, Ohio, and this is again my good friend Tim Jellison, W3YQ, who is a professional tower climber and also a safety expert, and also is certified in recovery, so that if there was a tower climber that was in trouble on a tower, Tim has successfully demonstrated to the proper training officials that he could remove that climber and bring the climber down the tower safely. So, this particular tower that Tim is on is a 230-foot tower here at K3LR. It's a Pyrod tower. All of the towers here at K3LR are made by Pyrod out of Illinois, and he's got the proper gear on. He's got a safety harness. He also has a fall arrest harness. He has his hard hat, and he has been doing safe tower climbing now for about 45 years. And so let's get into a couple of things. We want to talk about the hazards of doing work on towers. There certainly is electrocution, there's structure failure, there's incapacitation and falls. And I want to talk about electrocution. That typically happens when amateur radio operators do not pay attention to their surroundings and decide to put up antennas too close to electrical power lines. And so there was a ham here in the last few years that was killed. He actually was the West Virginia section manager. He was killed in West Virginia because he put up an antenna too close to the power lines. Structure failure. That can happen multiple ways. There were 2 hams here in the last year that were killed due to structure failure, where they were up on a structure, a tower, and in this case not very high, 20, 30 feet. You wouldn't think that that could be a problem, but it was. The structure was not properly guyed correctly, and it failed, and there were 2 deaths attributed to that, one in New Hampshire and one out in eastern Pennsylvania. Climbing crank-ups is a big no-no. You have to use a lift or a crane to properly attach antennas to a crank-up. And then, of course, W0AIH and PB0ADI, both PB8ADI, both died from falls from the towers here in the last 2 years, and that was because they did not use the proper attachment gear. So again, these are just some of the hazards with climbing. So you have to check for the power lines. We're going to talk about the proper harness and lanyards. There is no free climbing. You have to be tied off to the tower 100% of the time. Everyone on the crew has to wear a hard hat, and in the case of PB8ADI down in Brazil and W0AIH, who is a long-time friend of mine up in Wisconsin, you never ride a rope. In both cases, they were riding ropes, and the rope broke, and they're no longer here. So never ever ride a rope to go up and down a tower. And so the fall arrest lanyard, which is your safety net, the tie-off point is critical. And so you cannot use, this is Rohn 25, and Rohn 25 is an extremely popular tower. It's very strong. It's about 12 inches on the face, but you cannot use it to attach your fall arrest lanyard, because if in fact the fall arrest lanyard comes into play, it could actually detach these rungs on the Rohn 25 tower. So it is much better, and it's absolutely necessary that you have to snap the fall arrest lanyard around a tower leg, not just around the rung. And here's Tim showing the proper attachment to a tower. Notice that the red is his lanyard that's connected to a safety belt. This particular safety belt has a seat so that he can actually rest and sit down. And then you see the blue, which has got some compressed cord to it. That's the fall arrest lanyard. That's what comes into play in the event that red lanyard would fail. The fall arrest would come into play, and it's not going to be a pretty ride if you have to have that, but it will save your life. And so that fall arrest, that blue, is connected to an actual fall arrest system that is wrapped around both of his legs and wrapped around his torso so that he can't fall out of it. And that's very important. That just came into being here in the last 30 years due to a lot of issues with climbing due to cellular telephones. And so that's a very important part of the safety apparatus. And you don't want to use a belt system, a tower belt, that doesn't have that. That's two separate systems. One is a fall arrest, and one is the standard belt that goes around your torso. And both of those are, that is standard code now, and you must use this system. If you don't, if your belt system doesn't have this, you need to go online and buy a proper safety climbing belt. And so even if you will not be using the fall arrest lanyard, the full body harness is really what saves your life in rescuing you from the tower, or should that become necessary. And we talked about the seat, so that Tim is demonstrating here. He can actually sit on as part of the safety belt. You don't want to do this. You don't want to be that guy. That, look at this guy's up on top of a tower. This happens to be a microwave tower, and he's got one little scrawny belt around his waist, and that's it. If something happens up there, he is gone. He does not have the fall arrest lanyard. He doesn't have the proper protection. He doesn't have a hard hat. So lots of safety violations here. So when you're climbing Rohn towers, which are by far the most popular towers, you have to use two positioning lanyards, and one of them will always be around the tower at any time. And so Tim is showing the proper positioning lanyard. That's the red lanyard that goes around the tower, and as he climbs, that will move with him. And you don't want to let this slip over the top of the tower once you get there, so you have to be very careful. Notice once he gets to the top of the tower that he's got it wrapped around the one leg to make sure that there's no way that the lanyard can slip over the top. If you're hiring a tower crew, which if you're not a professional or you don't feel comfortable or you haven't been trained, this is what I would suggest, is that you hire a proper tower crew. You have to make sure that they are certified. And the training that Tim has gone through and that I've gone through is through ComTrain USA. And you can find more information by going to comtrainusa.com. And above all, when you're climbing, you want to follow all the safety rules. And it breaks my heart every year to hear about hams that die because they did not follow the proper safety rules. And so Tim will be giving a full session at Contest University in Dayton in May about tower safety. And it's paramount these days. It's okay to spend a little money on a proper safety crew that has the right training to do your tower work. The idea here is no silent keys, no SKs. And so that is my presentation here this evening, and I'm going to turn the camera back on, hopefully. And do you see me again?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, so I'm available here as long as you want to talk on any questions you might have.
So I saw in one of your presentations, there was a Rohn tower that was improperly assembled at the base, and it wasn't very tall. Things seemed to fall over, and I don't think it was the fall so much as the tower landing on top of the individual that had climbed it. Could you elaborate on that? On the
Yeah,
thing itself?
that was N3LPJ. That was the fellow out in eastern Pennsylvania, and the tower was a Rohn 45 tower. It was only 20 feet up. He didn't have any guy wires on it, and he had a home brew base. And he was attaching the gin pole at 20 feet, trying to make it 30 feet, and then he would attach some guy wires. And because of that home-brewed base, it tipped over, and the tower fell on him and crushed him. So it was a very tragic accident.
Thank you.
You mentioned having 2 climbing lanyards, I think you called them the red, and you showed a picture of a single red lanyard. Would
Yes.
you actually have 2 completely encircling the tower?
Yes. Yeah, and you would always make sure that one of them was around the tower. In the case of that demonstration, Tim used just one, but it was always around the tower so that he was always, you know, had a tie-off. And he was moving the fall arrest as he climbed the tower.
And that's not sufficient, the fall arrest and the one red lanyard?
That is sufficient. However, some towers don't, because they might have other antennas on the tower and so forth. You want to make sure that you have a second one that can go above in that case. So that's why having 2 is important.
So another quick question. When you're actually climbing the tower, what is hooked on or what isn't hooked on while you're actually moving on your way up to the top of the tower, say?
So the lanyard is around the tower while you're climbing,
Okay.
and the fall arrest is continually above you as you're climbing.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, with the Rohn towers, quite honestly, when I look at Rohn 25 and I look at a human being on the side of it, this doesn't look like a good match in any case. When you follow design rules for putting up a tower of any sort, when you're looking at wind loading of your antennas and the guying and so forth, are there additional design rules to accommodate a climber?
There can, in fact, in the case of a lot of the larger towers, you'll find that they have a wire that goes down from the top all the way to the bottom that is spaced about 6 inches off the face of the tower, that you can actually hook a system, a fall arrest system to, and they call it a chicken stick, but it's a safety climb. But you know, other things, the way the guys are attached to the tower is very important from a safety standpoint. And Rohn has an extensive set of requirements for tower installation, and all of them should be obeyed. They also have an extensive set of maintenance things that need to be done. Once you have a tower up, there's a lot of responsibility that goes with maintaining it and making sure that it stays safe. And so I would defer to the Rohn website, which is very good. They've got a lot of material there that is very safety-minded.
Well, it's good to know, because I have a very vivid memory of maybe 10 years ago watching 2 of my friends climb a Rohn 25 tower simultaneously, attached to the side of a house. And I think now about what all you're saying, and they had, the safety equipment they had were the big fat leather belts, looked like they belonged, you know, a bull ride wrestler or something like that. The big fat leather belts, and that was it. You tie off at the waist, so you're twisting and dangling after you fall. And
Yeah.
it's hard. I can't imagine in days gone by before the internet, before we knew about things, just how many of these accidents happened we never heard about.
And there were lots of them. And you know, the thing about it is if you have the proper safety equipment, those accidents can be prevented and lives saved. I mean, this is a hobby. You don't want to get killed trying to have fun.
Very good.
Hey, Tim,
Yes.
what kind of shoes do you recommend for climbing towers?
You know, I like the steel-toed shoes. You know, a lot of support. That's very important. If you're up on a tower for a long period of time, those rungs can be a real problem. So you need to make sure that you have very, very sturdy shoes.
Tim, have you heard this? I've heard that climbing amateur towers in general is more dangerous than the professional tower climbers that are climbing these quarter-mile towers, which we understand is a dangerous job, and they kill a few every year. But I've heard that ham radio operators die at a greater rate than, per climb or whatever you want to call it. Have you heard that?
Yes, and the reason for that is it's not what we do every day.
Yeah.
So it's sort of this weekend warrior deal, and we're amateur radio operators, and we think we know everything that's going on, and we think we know that we can, go up 60, 70, 80 feet on a tower and everything's going to be okay, but that's not the case. The professional tower climbers, they do it every day. That's what they do. And whatever you do in your job every day, you're a professional and you're good at it. But if a bunch of guys, a bunch of hams get together on a Saturday and decide that they're going to do a tower project, they don't have the experience. It's not their full-time job. It's not what they do, and therefore they're at risk because eventually they're going to make a mistake. Now, that mistake may or may not cost them their life.
So basically what you're saying is, you've got a certified climber, or a certified team to do your antenna work for you.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it's going to cost you some money, but guess what? You don't have to worry. You're not putting your life at risk, and that's the important thing. I climb my tower twice a year to do inspections, but all of the other work that is done here is done by a professional tower crew, and to me, that's what they do. They do that 40 hours or more a week. They're trained, they're certified, there's safety, there's a safety meeting before each climb, and to me, that's peace of mind. And I've seen hams that say, well, geez, I'm going to save that $200, or I'm going to save that $250 and not pay a professional to go up and install my dipole. And then if they get in trouble up there, that $250 doesn't look like so much anymore.
The base that was where the tower fell, you said it was a homemade base. What kind of base was it? Normally, I would think you'd stick a section of tower in 4 foot of concrete.
Yeah, in this case, there was concrete, but the homemade base was, I think he was trying to save some money, and he was adapting an old base, an old piece of concrete, to the new Rohn 45 tower that he was putting up. And he didn't, he wasn't a mechanical engineer. He didn't properly analyze the structure. And so it was that adaptation that got him in trouble. And in the case of the guy in New Hampshire, the base had actually been compromised due to rust. And one of the tower legs had actually been broken because the tower leg had filled up with water and froze, and the tower leg split. And when there was no longer any guy wires on the tower, actually this tower was being disassembled, the stresses were too great, and it fell over, and it killed a guy.
You mentioned the base was rusted, and I've looked for this. I noticed that if you have just a straight tower, straight section without a AG4 top, there's no caps. They don't make caps to keep the rain from going down the legs. Have you seen that?
Yes, I've seen that. All of the towers here at K3LR, none of the sections are in concrete. All of the towers come down to what is called a pure pin base. So there's a single piece of cold rolled steel that is in the middle of the concrete, and then the tower actually has a piece that sits on the concrete so that those legs never go into the concrete. You can put tower sections into concrete, but they have to be drained properly. They have to go into pea gravel at the bottom, because even if the tower at the top is capped or has the proper top on it so that rain doesn't get in, water will get in. Water always will get in. You have to leave it a way to get out, and that's why it's important to have the tower base in pea gravel.
Excellent, thank you.
Tim, there was a local incident where I was impressed with your safety rule about your guy that climbs your towers is experienced at bringing other people down if they get caught up on a tower. And that happened to us locally once. And the guy that was climbing was an experienced climber, but it was a hot day and he had a heat stroke. And there was no way to get, the fire department was flummoxed totally. They couldn't get him down. And another guy had to be brought in to do that evacuation off the tower sort of thing. And it was extremely dangerous because he was totally incapacitated on the side of the tower.
Yeah, that is that can happen if you're not properly hydrated, or if you're not, fit to do that kind of work, or if it's just too hot. So, yeah, you need to think about what can go wrong here, and if something goes wrong, how are we going to get out of the situation? So that's why tower rescue certification is very important.
Tim, with your certified crews, have you ever heard of occasion where they're called out to a site, to a tower, to a HAMS location, to climb the tower, and they look at the tower and they say, no, don't think so. That tower's not fit for climbing.
Yes, I have heard that, and that does happen. There are installations that amateur radio operators have done that were not done properly. And maybe it's a leg problem, maybe it's a guying problem, maybe it's an installation problem, but that tower professionals will walk away and say, I'm not going to do it. I can help you remove it. We'll bring in a crane or we'll bring in a lift so we don't have to be on the tower, and we'll get this thing down and do the proper installation. But, that's the right way. If it's not safe, don't go on it.
Tim, you mentioned that you climb your towers twice a year for maintenance. What kind of maintenance do you do and look for? What kind of inspections are you actually doing when you're doing those climbs?
So because I have a professional tower crew that does the work here, my inspection is just to go over all of the points that they routinely do. So I look for missing hardware, I look for rusted hardware, I look for anything that is not correct. For instance, it might be coax that is showing wear, could be guy wire attachments. So it's a very comprehensive look at all the things mechanical and also things related to the antenna systems. And so my job as the owner is to make sure that I give a fresh set of eyes. I've got a lot of experience with this. I worked in the cellular telephone business for a long time before going to work at DX Engineering, where I was in charge of thousands of towers. And so in this case, I'm looking to just make sure that I don't see something that sticks out. But I do look, we have a lot of photos. Those are very helpful for looking at how things are changing. But a lot of my inspection work is around guying and antenna attachments and coax.
You climbed the tower for a visual inspection. Have you ever thought about using these new helicopters, what do you want to call them? Drones?
Yes, and we do that. If you go to the QRZ page of K3LR, you'll see a lot of videos using drones here at K3LR, and in some cases they were tower inspections. So, but I like using the drone, but I also like being right close up and seeing what's going on with my own eyes.
So Tim, is there a nationwide directory of tower climbers that hams can take advantage of?
There is an association called NATE. It's the National Association of Tower Erectors, NATE, and they keep a comprehensive library of tower professionals. You can also Google, tower climbing professionals, and hopefully in your local area you will find some. There are some very good tower professionals that do amateur radio work. You folks are in Georgia, is that right?
Atlanta.
Yes.
Atlanta.
So-
Atlanta, Georgia.
Right, so K1 Tango Oscar, Dan Street, who is down in Florida, he's one of the best in the business. Also, Alpha Alpha 1 Kilo out of Delaware has done work down in Georgia, and Whiskey 2 Golf Delta, John Crivelli, is also a great tower professional. So there are amateur radio operators that are tower professionals. They've been trained, and they're insured and bonded, and have good track records of doing good work, and they have good reviews on EHAM.
Tim, did you say
Anything-
you
any
used
other
pie
questions?
rod towers?
What's that?
Did you say you used pie rod towers?
Yes, my towers are Pyrod.
Right.
They're not Rohn, and the difference, the Pyrod towers are solid steel legs. So, where the Rohn towers are pipe, my towers are solid steel.
That's Tango India Echo or Papa India Echo?
Papa India Radio Oscar Delta, Pyrod.
All right, any other questions? Well, Tim, thank you very much. Appreciate coming, join us, and do this presentation.
11 or 13.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great presentation.
I do have a certificate that I'll mail to you since you get to the post office. It's a certificate of appreciation for Tim Duffy, K3LR, for his presentation on tower safety. Again, thank you so very much for your informative and insightful.
Well, thanks very much for having me this evening. It was a great pleasure to talk to your club. Clubs are the backbone of the amateur radio hobby. As you mentioned early on, I am president of my local club, and we always have a good program every month, and clubs are critical to the growth of our hobby. That's how new people come in and find out and learn about this, what is the best hobby in the world. And so I applaud you for being a good, strong club. I wish you a lot of luck and success. And if DX Engineering can help any of your members in any way, don't hesitate to give us a call.